So today is about DBT, DataVault, VaultSpeed, Turbovault, and how you combine all these things to get productive in your DataVault projects, right? So let me first start by introducing everyone here on the call. First of all, our, I would say, special guest on our webinar from ScaleFree, Tim Kirschke. He's a managing consultant and also the head of product development at ScaleFree. Basically, Tim, he's the guy that built Turbovault alongside with a few other team members, perhaps, but he's the driving brain behind it. So welcome, Tim, and maybe you can give a bit more an intro about yourself, but also about your company, ScaleFree. So the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Jonas. Thank you, Jill. Thanks for having me. So yeah, my name is Tim. You already said most of what's important about me, I guess. I'm here today to talk about Turbovault, DataVault for DBT, and also do a demo, of course. And I'm representing ScaleFree. And ScaleFree is a consulting company. We also have a lot of open source products on the market, tools that help you implement DataVault and basically get your product and your project up to speed, which we're going to show today. Yeah, I guess that's all I need to say about ScaleFree. It's about a demo and the end-to-end workflow today. So back to you or Jill, not sure who picks it up.
Well, let's start with Jill. Jill is solution engineer on our team, and Jill, you will be hosting the demo today.
Yes, exactly. Hello, everybody. My name is Jill. I'm only 8 months at VaultSpeed, so I'm very excited to already be able to present something that we created like this project. I think it's a very interesting one, especially as it's one of the first ones I did. So I feel very blessed to do this. So I hope everybody enjoys. And I will give back the word to Jonas now for the presentation.
And actually, it's fair to say that Gilles, together with Tim and the ScaleFree team, are basically the brains behind this integration. So they kind of built the integration together, and it's therefore that they will be hosting the demo today. Myself, my name is Jonas. I've been at VaultSpeed for a bit longer. I lead our solution engineering team, and I will be your host today, guiding you through this story of ScaleFree and VaultSpeed together. Okay. So quick tour of the agenda. We will first talk a bit about why this webinar. Why would you combine all these solutions, and what problems do we solve together? Talk a bit about the pipeline that we created, the end-to-end process, and of course show a demo of how this thing would work in action. And actually a demo that doesn't mainly focus on building with DataVault once, but also how you maintain it and how you keep everything in sync with the reality that lives inside your source systems, your business model, and things like that. So the challenge that we want to solve is, what if you build a DataVault and you're just using DBT alone, right? And Tim, feel free to chime in once I finish here. But if you do this with DBT alone, then there's a lot of configuration that you need to handle manually or with some scripting that you've built yourself, right? You need to build all the DataVault pattern scripts yourself. You need to build these macros, or you could build every DBT model one by one, but that would just take way too much time. So DBT itself is a very productive tool for data engineering, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. But if you want to do DataVault specifically, there's quite a few things that you need to harness, that you need to master in before you can really get productive. And that's a bit the challenges, right? It's going to be a lot of manual effort. You can make mistakes easily. If you create a macro to load a hub table, for example, and you make one mistake, it could replicate over all the objects and hub tables you want to build, and that can cost you in preparation time. Before you can really get a data product out the door, you could lose a lot of time just in this setup. And that's why the people at ScaleFree thought of Turbovault. because Turbovault gives you a lot of these things that were missing, right? All the macros and the predefined code that you need to build a proper data vault that is compliant to the data vault standards and what have you, are embedded in the package that Scalefree has created with Turbovault. It supports a whole bunch of databases out of the box. And of course, yeah, it's DBT native. It was built for DBT. So you can just go to your the GitHub repo that Scalefree and Turbovault have hosted, do a pip install of Turbovault, and you're ready to get going on DBT with DataVault. Now, what is still missing, and that's why we are bringing this story together. In DataVault, you typically require a top-down modeling approach. You want to start from your conceptual data model with the outline of how an organization works and how you want to kind of influence the overall schema design of your data vault. So for that, VaultSpeed can deliver you a visual model designer. You will see that in the demo. And also, once you have built the model, it kind of harnesses all the metadata management that comes with it. So bringing you from one version to the next and the next and the next is something that VaultSpeed can deliver to you. So it's a bit about managing the data model so that you can hand it over to Turbovault, which will then in turn generate all the code. So it's indeed a better together story. And to skip ahead, this is indeed the pipeline that we want to build. So it's about designing the data vault in a proper way using a top-down approach in VaultSpeed, then using VaultSpeed's SDK, which has full access to the metadata to deliver the necessary metadata into the Turbovault ecosystem. Turbovault in turn contains all the code, all the scripts, everything that is needed to generate DBT compliant, data vault compliant code. And in the end, you can just run this in your favorite DBT environment, whether it's DBT Cloud, DBT Core, or Snowflake, or anything else. It will just run and work. If there are any changes, you don't have to start changing the code or changing the macros or whatever. No, you just restart from step one. You absorb these model changes in your design in VaultSpeed, re-export the metadata, and build a new version just like that. And that's, by the way, the demo that Tim and Jill will cover with you guys today. Okay. So a little bit from the VaultSpeed side, right? There are two ingredients that VaultSpeed needs to build a proper data vault model. The first step is, like I said, the conceptual data model. It's about business entities, relationships. It's a little bit the blueprint, the design of what you want to build inside your silver layer, inside your data vault model. So that's the first ingredient that we require. The second one is more technical of nature. It's all the metadata that you can harvest from your sources. So what is my SAP system? What is it looking like? My Salesforce system, my Guidewire, whatever core system you are using. If you can provide that metadata to VaultSpeed, someone is calling me at a really bad time. I'm sorry for that. If you can harvest that metadata into VaultSpeed, we can leverage it and map it to that conceptual model for you to eventually come up with a data vault model that just works and makes sense to your business users. So that's a bit the process in VaultSpeed. And you will see that in Gill's part of the demo, how you manage that with VaultSpeed entirely. Now, for the next section, I'm going to hand it over to Tim, because Tim is going to talk a bit more about the tools that Scalefree provides to do the code generation.
Exactly. Thanks for the handover, Jonas. So yeah, let's start a bit historically. So as Jonas already said, if you just work with DBT and you want to implement a data vault, and at some point you're going to notice that, for example, every hub is going to be built roughly the same way, and you're going to end up copying the code from one hub model to the next hub model. So natural decision, if you are familiar with DBT, is to build a macro, right? This macro has to cover a lot of edge cases. You might have multiple sources feeding into one hub. You want to put in a high watermark to make the loading, the loading performance a bit better. You want to deal with late arriving data. You want to deal with multiple batches. So you will end up writing a very complex macro, which you have to maintain yourself. And that's what we basically decided to just instead launch for the public at scale free. And I think it's now 3.5 years old already, I guess. Back then we launched DataVault for DBT. It grew over time. Right now it supports 9 databases, so we manually have to support every database because every database has a different dialect. But it completely shifts the way of creating a data vault with DBT, because instead of writing SQL code, as you see here in the example model, you only have to define metadata, right? You see this model, it creates a hub, and you only have to tell the macro, hey, this is my source model, this is my hash key, this is my business key. If I have multiple source models, I can define it here. And this is obviously a minimal example. You have plenty of configuration options here. But it's basically, it shifts the developer work from creating these monotonous raw vault models into focusing on creating actual business value. DataVault for DBT is fully compatible with DBT Fusion. If you heard of it already, then great. If you haven't, don't worry about it. It's just basically a new backend of DBT. And we fully support it. We have all kind of Data Vault 2 object types, everything you basically would expect to need. You will find it in the package. That's basically what we did first. And then at some point, when you start working, or if you continue working with DBT in a large project, you will still notice that, okay, besides those macros, there's still a lot of manual effort. Even if I use this macro, if I want to create a new hub, I just most likely copy an existing hub and change the metadata. So what we then came up was, how can we further automate this process? And we came up with Turbovault. Some of you might know the old Turbovault, which is called Turbovault for DBT. We just recently launched the new Turbovault, and we got rid of the 4DBT because it's going to be a more universal automation engine. It's actually already public. We haven't really announced it anywhere. So this is our first public announcement of it already being public, I think for 2 weeks now. So you can already just try it out with a pip install. I'm not gonna go into too many details here, but the whole idea is that you have tables or relational metadata that describes your data vault model. And then you have the Turbovault engine in between. It reads this metadata and basically creates out of that the full DBT project, meaning models, meaning YAML files that describe the models, so the tests, right? And right now we already have an ER diagram, which is also generated to visualize your DBT project or your data vault project, more or less. This obviously is going to be extended in the future. That's the whole idea of getting rid of the 4DBT stuff, right? So we aim to, on the one hand side, feed from more sources. So right now we have VaultSpeed as a first native integration, which is amazing. And we're also going to feed towards more automation tools. So think about other automation tools, not just DBT, where we are able to basically generate code for them and bring the data vault to whatever tool you actually want to use. So it maybe, if you're still not entirely sure how those two tools work together, it hopefully comes clearer once we go into the demo part. But I guess this is all I have to tell you about those tools. If you see it in action, then things become hopefully more clear. And with this, I hand it back to you, Jonas.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. That was very clear. Good overview. So just before we dive into the demo, a little bit an overview of the process, right? We will see VaultSpeed, where you design and govern the model and the metadata management that comes with it, version management, lifecycle management of your data vault model. Then through the VaultSpeed SDK/API, you will actually move the metadata into a format that is readable by Turbovault. Turbovault will then in turn manage the generation of the code, the DBT models that will be pushed to Git. And through Git, of course, we can pull it, do a pull request and pull it into our favorite DBT runtime environment. Now, for the demo, Tim will morph into your data engineer and Jill will become your data modeler. So with that, I give the floor to you guys, and yeah, take it away with the demo, please.
Yep. Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you.
As Jonas told everybody, today I'm going to be the data modeler. So I'm going to live inside of VaultSpeed, and I will do the first steps before I will give the work to Tim. So when we open VaultSpeed, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at a conceptual model. We want to create it. Why do we want to do that? We won't build a house with only bricks and no ID or no blueprints. So we need an architect. The architect will look at this screen, will look at the source and create an entire conceptual model inside of VaultSpeed. So that's what we have here. This is also the schema that we will be using for this demo. So it's about banking. We have accounts, which will be clear later because we will use this as an example. We have credit cards. We can show the relations, outgoing, incoming. We can go into details. We can change everything. So this is the first step that we will always take before going into the bricks, into the data, into the metadata that we have inside of VaultSpeed. So next step, we will go with a quick jump to our sources inside of VaultSpeed. So this is where everything starts. This is where we get all the metadata inside of VaultSpeed to our agent that's locally on your own computer. How we will do this? We will create database links, like you have Snowflake right here. We will do this through the agents that you have on your computer. So we don't save anything that's private. So everything will happen locally. We will read the metadata from Snowflake through our sources system. How this works, let's say we have the banking source. This is on Snowflake, a schema. And we have objects in here. So you can see we have accounts, alerts. These are all the tables we have. And we have selected them all. So this shows all the tables. We can go to our releases. We selected all of them. And let's say we go to the first release into the editor. And now you can see the real beauty of VaultSpeed. When we drag this inside, you will see a clean overview of the schema, all the tables inside of it with the columns inside of it. Now, I didn't model anything here. This all went automatically because we have predefined relationships in our source. VaultSpeed recognizes these relationships and automatically connects everything. If you want to do changes, no problem. You can do changes to the table with the properties file select menu. So you can change the CDC, incremental load using modification date, signature objects, parameters. This can go really in depth. I won't go into detail, but you can do the same for a column, and you can see the same for relations. Now, what happens when we have a production database? Things change. That's one of the most of the things that happens the most, and are one of the challenges of data modeling. What we have inside of VaultSpeed, we will go back to the banking source, and you can see we have different releases. On release 3, we can see a comment that we have an extra table removed, things like that. So we can go back to the editor in this new release, and we can go to the overview, attribute. We can compare this with previous releases. What will happen is if we generate this, it will show us an overview of the entire source with tables that got deleted, tables that got added. And the one that we will be focusing on for this demo from end to end is this little status table, column like this. So in accounts, we have status. This got added in the source. We now have it in VaultSpeed because we got it from the source, and we can see it in the editor. What we will do next is we will create our own data vault. So you can see we have a DBT vault. This is very easy to do. You can just create the data vault, choose your database type. When we open it, we can see all the versions right here. So we will use the latest one because we made changes. We want the latest one. If you want a new release, it's very easy to do. Make a release name, release number. You can choose from the two sources that we have. We have banking and customer service. This also shows that what we are doing is multi-source supported. It's possible to have multiple sources instead of only one. And we can choose which release we want. Do we want categories inside of it or not? We can choose. If you don't want it, we can choose the 4, for example. But I already did that because it takes a minute. So when we open this up, we can go to the graphical overview. When we generate this, it will show our own data vault. So the 2 sources I had are now in this data vault together. And it's a graphical overview where you can go into depth to see what are the hubs, satellites, links, etc. We can also do this in a clean list. So this also shows everything. But now I did my data modeling. I'm ready to give the data vault to Tim, the data engineer, who is a bit better with the code than me. What I will do is I will export my data vault. I already created an export named all. It exports all the metadata from the data vault. What we will do is we will select everything, so the final version. So you can always already give another version when you're not ready, and then go to the latest version, no issues. We will check the all configuration, and we generate this. We go into our tasks, and you see it's done really quickly, only 3 seconds. And you have, when I download this, an entire CSV file with all our demo in it. Now, if we go to what we really made, the VaultSpeed and Turbovault collaboration is all inside of this UI. What we can do is we can take the export we did, we can open it, we can import and transform this. And now you can see I did already in preparation of this demo an import first with the first version, so nothing removed, nothing added. So now you can see when we add another CSV file, so another data vault, you can see we added sources, hubs, links. These are all the things that you saw in the graphical overview that's being added, being deleted. But we would focus on the status. So you can see in the satellite of banking, we have the status added right here. Next thing we will do, we also have a nice overview if you want to double check everything for hubs, for satellites. So let's say we go here, we can see the status as well. So this shows everything that you want to see. But this step is where the real magic happens. If I click this button, the generate models, what will happen is in the backend, we did a mapping from our metadata export to the import of Turbovault. So this all happened automatically. And if I generate this, Turbovault will generate the DBT models, the SQL files, everything. We can put in these database names, save them, so it's easy to run it for Tim. And what happened is we can now export this to a local folder with no Git. We can create a new Git repository. What I'm going to do is I'm going to export this to like this, to a DBT Turbovault folder that I have. I'm on a branch after changes. You can see the remote. You can switch branch if you want. We will sync the models, commit them, and push them to remote. Now, I already did this, so nobody needs to wait too long. And I already opened the PR to our main branch. And this is where I leave the word to Tim. So, because this is where the data engineer takes over, and Tim will walk you further through this.
I will. Thanks, Jill, for the handover. So let me quickly share my screen. You will notice it's dark mode instead of light mode, but it's the same pull request. So yeah, Jill already opened it actually 2 days ago, but we can ignore that for now. And I obviously, natural workflow, I can be very happy that I get a nice pull request as a data engineer. Like it's unusual in some places to receive something like this. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, Jill, for this nice pull request. So next step is I obviously check this pull request very thoroughly, do some tests. In reality, I would obviously have a GitHub action that executes my changes. Yeah, we took out that step to just keep it simple here, right? So we will see, or we actually see here that the latest execution of the VaultSpeed Turbovault connection Yeah, it added some new models, it deleted some models, and it modified existing models, right? A typical larger pull request, all kinds of changes. After my very thorough review, I obviously gonna approve those changes. I'm gonna merge those changes into main. And yeah, perfect. Next on, I'm gonna jump into Visual Studio Code, where I cloned this exact same repository. I'm actually gonna go to the main branch and I will do a git pull to get the latest changes. I honestly, oh yeah. This is not working. That's a classic demo. Yeah, that's always the risk with demos. Let me maybe do a git pull via this UI. Okay. Yeah, that's a classic scenario. So, I mean, it's not the first demo you watch, I guess. So let me try if this now works, because I actually have multiple Git accounts set up. Yeah, so I just switched the Git account. I did a git pull. The pull obviously failed because it's a live demo, so everything goes wrong that could have gone wrong. It's a conflict. You'll see some live Git action here, which is, I mean, that's the way how you work with dbt anyway, right? So it's not far from reality. You could argue that those Git workflows are not, oh yeah, I have to obviously resolve the conflict. Perfect. So long story short, I integrated the changes from Jill into my repository. We can actually have a look. For example, the satellite that was highlighted, it was the account satellite. We can see it's also highlighted here. The status column is actually added here. Yeah, we don't have to focus on all changes here. We couldn't because there are too many changes to actually go through them all. We don't have to. I just want to show you now like this, the thing that you would now do in dbt. I mean, typically you wouldn't do this by hand. You might have a scheduled job that picks up your current state of main and just executes everything every day or multiple times per day. You just imagine I am the cron job that now executes the dbt statement. And dbt, if you're aware of dbt and don't see it for the first time, you know that dbt is a nice built-in feature to automatically detect changes. And this is the state modified. Plus means everything that's modified and stuff that's depending on models that have been modified. And that's exactly what I want to do now, right? So you could imagine this as a CI pipeline actually. And for this, it obviously needs a previous state. dbt calls it a state, which I already pulled here. So it's a manifest JSON from basically my previous dbt run. And now I just hit a dbt build and selecting everything that was actually changed. What should we see now? I mean, it's hard for you to double check. But we see that actually 99 steps are executed. And I can guarantee you that if I would do a full dbt build, it would be way more. It would be like, I think, 321. So dbt successfully identified which models actually need to be executed. It executed them. And surprisingly, everything was successful. I actually didn't expect that. But it's amazing because that's what we wanted to have. So how can we now verify that the status column is actually there? Let me open up my Snowflake. So if we go to this exact physical satellite, if you were lucky, you saw the real-time change. The status column now appears. It wasn't there before. Again, that's hard to prove. I should have shown it before. It doesn't really matter, right? But the status column is now here. I can read, I don't have to fetch again. We can do a data preview. I actually never did. Yeah, we don't have that much data here. But the status is there, it's populated. We have data void classic, technical columns, a hash key, a hash diff, load that record source. But yeah, we basically now shot this change and all other changes that Jill did from the visual model through the integration with Turbovault all the way to our database. And this is typically not where the story ends, right? So imagine now you would work in dbt, right? So you might have a business vault, you might have information marks, you might have an account dimension where you now want to add this status column, right? So from now on, you work in dbt. If you have like downstream transformations that you want to do, if you want to do some information delivery, all this would now happen in dbt as you're already used to, right? So this wouldn't change. This integration that we're showing you today, it basically shows or it changes the way of how to get here and how to get stuff into your raw data vault. And you no longer have to copy and paste the files to create a new satellite. You no longer have to write your own models for the raw vault. All this is happening via the integration. And you can basically focus in here on business transformations, business value, and serving your business requirements. Yeah, that's already it from the demo part from my side. I would now hand it back to Jonas. I think Jonas or Jill, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
well, it will be Gilles' screen and I will talk through it again. So thanks a lot, guys. That was a really interesting and engaging demo, even with some Git issues. We all know this. It happened to me this morning as well. So it's the good thing is, Tim, that it was fixed. And what I really liked is, there was this one change on which we focused, but we could see it run all the way end to end. A new field added or a table added or something that changed. This is what always happens. Our source systems change, our business models might change, and we need to be able to cope with that. And through the modeling, the translation into working code, into the preferred runtime on DBT, everything just ran all the way to the point where you even got the data loaded. So yeah, that's the whole point of this webinar. How can we become more productive by using the combinations of these tools together to make that happen? Now, key takeaways, just with the overview, you could clearly see in the demo what Jill did. He started from a conceptual model, recognizing really how the business works, how it's structured, and how we can use that as a blueprint to build a proper data vault model. The other side of it is that we need the metadata of the sources, because those will help us fill in the data vault model with descriptive details from all the sources on which we have data from our various concepts like customers and accounts and things like that. Whether it's a banking model or an insurance model or whatever, that's not the point. You design the model towards the industry in which you're active. So that's what VaultSpeed does for you. And also, of course, the management and the versioning of these models and how they evolve over time. Then we handed it over to Turbovault using the integration that we built together. Turbovault will generate you the code. It's data vault compliant code, DBT compliant code, so it will run everything smoothly as we saw in the demo. And then finally, DBT will run it at scale. So whether you're using Core, Cloud, or any other version, you can run it in DBT. And moreover, the loop is not only a one-time build, it's really also taking into account the lifecycle management of a data vault in production, so that if there's any change, you can run the entire loop again and keep everything up to date and in sync with reality. So that's what we saw in the demo. We will have time for questions, but before we go there, I would like to announce, because the one question that I would see coming is, how do we get access to this new integration, to this new tool, right? And that's where VaultSpeed can announce you that we will launch our VaultSpeed Labs, right? And this is where you can build on top of VaultSpeed, right? We have a very open system. We have an API, an SDK that enables you to do and get access to everything that you can see inside VaultSpeed. For example, the metadata, which was a vital component for this integration. The fact that the metadata of VaultSpeed is so accessible after you've built the models means that you can easily integrate it with solutions like Turbovault. So that's the one that we showed in this session. There will be other community connectors coming soon. There's a whole lot of integrations you can think of, whether it's in the terms of code generation or data governance, things like that. And obviously, if you are in VaultSpeed Labs, you can also get early access to some new capabilities that are in VaultSpeed. For example, the conceptual modeling is fairly new. That's something that we added recently. That would be an example of a feature you could get early access to. And there's a few more coming in the pipeline. So if you want to sign up for that, you can contact us. We have some contact details on the next slide as well. So To wrap it up, if you want to try VaultSpeed and Turbovault in combination, please contact us. You can see the links on how to do that on this slide. So write them down or copy them or whatever, or already do it now. To install the Turbovault engine, Tim shared it as well. You can just install it right now. It went live in dark mode 2 weeks ago, but you can already try it. And as of this moment, it's really the scoop, Tim. This was the first time you announced it.
Yes, I mean, I announced it internally at Scalefree, but
yeah,
it's
so
a public one.
Live in our VaultSpeed Scalefree webinar, the announcement Turbovault is up to install. You can just go get it. And of course, the early access to VaultSpeed Labs to get access to the integration that Gilles and Tim and the team built together. That's also where you can contact us. And now I would love to open the floor if there are people who have questions on the content of this webinar for Tim, for Gilles, or for me. We are happy to answer them. I already see. So there is just a quick intro. There is a QA section and there's also a chat section. I will monitor them both. But either way, please feel free to share your questions. So the first one is from Gregor's. Does Turbovault and DataVault for DBT, does it work with the native VaultSpeed app on Snowflake? That's another announcement that we did recently at VaultSpeed. So we have a native app now, right? And in essence, I would say it should work, because what the native app in Snowflake will do, it will the agent that Gilles talked about, that works as the connection between your database and the VaultSpeed cloud. It's that agent that lives inside that native app. So if you open a trial account on Snowflake and you get access to the VaultSpeed native app, you will have that agent installed right into your environment. You will get a demo sample set and you can run through that. And if you then get access to our labs and you try the VaultSpeed Turbovault integration, you could get productive with the same demo as Tim and Gilles showed you today. So yes, it's possible. And now I'm moving to the QA because I see a few questions there. From Philip, is there any chance to have the recording of this session? Absolutely. I think it will even be published on the VaultSpeed and maybe also Scalefree websites. So we will send it over to all attendees, also people who couldn't make it. They will all get a link to the video page. Yes.
So there's one question from Zahir. When you said it supports 9 databases, does switching between them actually require any changes to the model in VaultSpeed, or is that all handled on the Turbovault side? So I can answer part of it, which is the Turbovault and DBT side. And Turbovault itself doesn't matter at all, because it doesn't even know where the data should go physically. That's all handled by DBT. And in DBT, our package also doesn't care. And DBT itself, it's very seamless to switch the connectors. So that side is all clear. VaultSpeed, what about this, Jonas?
Let me see. So it says the switch between. When you said it supports 9, does it switch between them actually, or yeah? So it depends a bit on how you generate code, right? There are multiple ways in which you can leverage VaultSpeed's metadata to do code generation, right? There is the example that we showed in this demo through Turbovault. There is also the code generator that is embedded in VaultSpeed. We have that as well. That can be through DBT, that can be natively towards a whole range of databases that is supported through VaultSpeed as well. And then you would just generate native SQL, Snowflake procedures or Databricks, Spark SQL, things like that. And actually, if you want to switch between one platform or the other, which occasionally happens, customers that want to switch from one database platform to another, then they wouldn't actually have to change that in the model. The model is independent from its technical implementation. So it's basically flipping a switch And I agree, it can be it's not flipping a switch, it's a little bit more complex than that, but it's fairly easy. And it means that in a very short amount of time, we can easily migrate a project from, I don't know, could be an on-prem system to a cloud database platform or things like that. There's more questions. I see one from Yonani. So how long does the full export to running in DBT loop actually takes in an enterprise level project? I would say...
I'm a consultant, yeah. I can say it. It depends.
It depends, yeah.
I mean, it obviously depends on the size of your vault. We saw a honestly still small scale example today, and it took us 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you can tell a bit about the scaling within VaultSpeed, but on DBT side, it scales pretty well, and also with DataVault for DBT and Turbovault. So this whole generation and execution step, it won't really get any longer when you have a bigger and bigger vault.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, merely because if you focus on a certain change in like one of the systems that, let's say your ERP system has changed or your core banking system has changed, then you absorb these changes into the model and you generate that particular part of the code that is needed to bridge it from one step to the next. So because of the agility of DataVault and the model itself, if you build automation on top of that to maintain the model, to maintain the code, it actually scales quite well, I would say. Another question around when a source schema changes, how does VaultSpeed detect and apply only the delta instead of rebuilding anything? That's based on a whole set of rules, right? And it's implied that's something that DataVault brings us. DataVault is a very agile methodology. It enables you to, when a model changes, minimize the re-engineering work, I would say. And the benefit of that is just absorbed by our automation solution, which can then easily apply a delta and run the scripts from one version to the next. So that's quite covered. And also, as we saw in this demo, where you hand it over to DBT, some of the capabilities inside DBT also help you with that, right? What Tim did, the only changed or to run only the changed objects, that is something that is a tremendous help in keeping the platform in sync with the changes in the models. I see a few more in the chat. So yeah, there was a question to share the link to Turbovault. I see a link to a website that looks like the Turbovault website, so that question is covered.
Yes.
And there's also a direct link to GitHub, so that's where you can try it as well. Okay. Does anyone see any other questions? I think that was the last one. Final chance if anyone has a last question, last call. Otherwise, we can end the webinar. So before we go, I would like to thank Gilles for the demo, Tim, also for the demo and your cooperation on this project. It was really cool to do this together. And I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. And yeah, thank you for your attention and great questions.
Thanks, Jonas. Thanks, Jill. Thanks for having me. And thanks everyone for joining, also from my side. Have a nice day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you.